Charlie. Mark, 1 Charlie.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I'm full of optimism.
Einstein's theory of relativity.
And we're still seeing it quite well through that haze.
T-minus 37 seconds.
Fight is growing.
E equals MC.
That all men are created equal.
About the future innovations.
And growing strength in the air.
Tear down this weather. Head on. Something happening coming up on station.
This is Finding Your Frequency with your hosts, Jeff Spinard and Ryan Treasure. It's time to speak up, share your voice, and hear from the thought leaders.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another fantastic episode of Finding Your Frequency. I want to give everybody a big shout out and thank you for tuning in to the radio program right here on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. We're going on 21 years live on the air here at Voice America. So always proud to be here. Been at the company for 16 years, and you know we're just rocking and rolling and doing 300 hours of radio a week. And just want to just throw a shout out to you guys that are listening. I know a lot of people are stuck at home and they're going stir crazy and they're working from home and not really getting out into the social sphere so much with social distancing. So just want to let all you guys know that everybody's dealing with the same thing and it's all going to be okay. You know, sometimes I think when we're cooped up in the house and we have a lot of additional time that we spend with our partners and our family, so I think sometimes that can cause a little bit of a strain on people. And then of course, you know, when you're trying to get along and maybe you're being a little too empathetic when you're working through some of those challenges and maybe putting some of your energy in the wrong direction at times. So we want to talk a little bit about that, the relationships, about how you can, you know, use that energy for positive change and also reserve some of that energy to make sure that you have some left over for taking care of yourself. Because I think one thing that a lot of people forget is you can't take care of your family if you can't take care of yourself, right? So we all have to, you know, knuckle down and make sure that we're paying attention to our self-growth and all of that. I've been still continuing to do karate and martial arts through all of this, and our dojo just opened back up this week. So I was really excited about that, to actually have some FaceTime with the students and with our sensei, and not see everybody in little tiny squares in Zoom. So that was definitely awesome. So we have a great guest today who's going to be on, and when I talk about great, I'm talking about this woman is awesome. She's the founder of the Relationship Institute of Palm Beach, the creator of the Self-Full Method, a therapeutic path to preserve personal wellness and freedom from codependence. Because we all know, I tell my daughter this every day, I'm teaching you everything I know so you don't have to depend on anybody for anything, right? So Jessica Baum, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We really appreciate you being on. I know that a lot of stuff going on and taking an hour out of your day to come chat with us. I really appreciate that. You know, reading through some of your press material and, you know, seeing that you're a certified addiction specialist, you focus on chemical abuse, codependency, you help people with anxiety. You know, you have your undergraduate degree from Fordham University, a master's degree in mental health counseling. I mean, those are some great accolades and some fantastic work that you do. The world needs more people like you, right? Because especially right now with all these trying times, I mean, you know, there's so many relationship things happening. I noticed that a statistic had come out that domestic violence was up like 40% during the whole COVID-19 pandemic and stay-at-home orders across the country, and that can't happen. I mean, if you spend more time with your loved ones, that should be a blessing. That should be something that's you know, exciting for you, not something that would turn out to be 40% increase in domestic violence. You know, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But, you know, Jessica, here on Finding Your Frequency, for us, it's all about the story. It's all about the why, you know, so we want to know, you know, where did you come from? How did you get where you are? How did you find your frequency in life and in business and decide that, you know, you were gonna be a relationship and counselor for folks? Where did that all come from? Where did it start?
I wish that was a simple answer. The truth is, I had a few occupations before I landed in what really resonated with me. And looking back, everything kind of has a reason. And it was more of a place I had reached in my life where I was doing something else. I was a professional horseback rider, and I had suffered from anxiety, depression in my life. And I had just decided I wanted to help others and do something more. So I really reflected on that and found myself going back to school. And down in South Florida, there's so many treatment centers. So I did a lot of my, what we'd consider your residency in a treatment center, thinking, I might not love addiction. And I absolutely loved it. I love the spirituality about it. And you talk about finding your frequency. It was really the first time in my life I was like, wow, I'm really right where I'm supposed to be. And that's a feeling that just, I don't know. I wish everyone could find that, and
that's what we call finding your frequency, right? It's that moment where you just like, boom. Oh, you know what? I love what I'm doing. This path that I'm on is great. And you get that, sense, that tingly feeling, right? Where maybe the couple of hairs on your arm stand up and you're just like, oh, this is it, right? You feel that passion.
Absolutely. It was, for me, it was so important because I was lost for a while. So finding my calling, it really resonated with me, and working with addiction and codependency, that all came very natural for me because of my own personal struggles. And then the work that I did on myself and through my relationship struggles, I just became fascinated with understanding attachment theories and how energy works in relationship and childhood trauma and how we kind of recreate things in our relationships. And I just studied and took trainings. I became an certified Imago therapist, which took a long time. And I just love what I do. So I'm really fortunate that I'm really passionate about, the service I provide, and I continuously want to learn about it. So that in itself is a gift. And I think it's about finding your purpose and kind of tuning into that frequency and continuing to move towards it all the time.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think, just like nurses and doctors and, those people that are, currently on the front line dealing with COVID, I think that, people who are relationship and substance abuse counselors and all of these things, I mean, you guys have been dealing with, the psyche of human beings and, why they do what they do, how they do what they do. And, some of those things I think sometimes people forget about when, they're so, worried about the hustle and bustle of their day. They don't, take time to maybe step back and think about, well, how is my relationship doing? How am I, going into my own self and kind of thinking about how I'm treating other people or how other people are treating me. And, those pieces are extremely important. I mean, as much as important as, your physical health is, your mental health is also as important, and keeping that on the right track. That's got to be tough for you. You probably get to hear some amazing and tough stories from people who are going through a multitude of things in their lives. How do you keep yourself straight, and how do you keep yourself from not, being like an empath, right? And taking on some of the struggles as those people are telling their stories. How do you keep yourself grounded?
I'm very humble, and I love that you asked that question. When I first started in the field, it was over 10 years ago. I remember doing my first session. It wasn't even an hour long, and I went home and I slept for 3 hours. I was exhausted. And I think being empathic, I do absorb, and I still have to practice self-care, and I have to practice spiritual boundaries, but you do build kind of a tolerance, and you do build space after a period of time. And so you kind of start to work with that energy differently. But I am constantly humbled by the fact that I need to continuously look at that, because I tend to put too much on my plate or say a little yes too much, I am a feeler. I tap into other people's feelings. So it's a constant battle of checking, balancing myself, letting go, taking space for myself. And like what you said earlier, we all get so busy. Yeah. I can get busy doing this, and all of that is a way essentially of avoiding self. So making that time to kind of really check in and see what's going on inside. As a counselor, we still have to do that too. So all of that is so necessary.
Yeah, I think for me, that's exactly why I do martial arts, right? I get the opportunity to go to a space with like-minded people that has absolutely nothing to do with my job, right? I get to have some physical fitness as well as some mental fitness, because karate's not all about just like punching bags, right? There's, things where you're really trying so hard to get your mind and your body to connect and move as one, which is a difficult task, especially after a long day at work. But that time that you take for yourself, it's got to be, way outside of what you do to really give yourself that distraction and that, that ability to care for yourself in a manner where you're not thinking about, what's happening tomorrow or what happened today. I think for a lot of people, that's really hard for them to like let go of what happened today or what needs to be done tomorrow to take that hour or that 2 hours for yourself. I think that's really hard for people. And when you're coaching folks who are going through hard times, how do you get them to understand that it's okay to let go of the other things and focus on yourself? Because I think a lot of people are afraid of that. I don't know what they're afraid of losing, but it's difficult for some people to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty deep topic. And I think people are afraid of letting go and going inward or being present for a multitude of survival reasons. I mean, the free fall, the void, the whatever we might feel if we sit with ourselves long enough. However, there's so much power in that. And, with your karate, your martial arts, like that, those type of activities are the best place to start because they bring you into the moment. So with a client that might not be able to, sit and do meditation per se, they might be able to do something that kind of brings them into the moment more so they can get out of their head and more into their body. So those types of things really help. And I think people, they avoid sitting or facing their inner self because sometimes they don't have the capacity. I truly believe that we need to be supported as we go inward, and a lot of flooding can happen. A lot of fear can come up. It's sometimes an unnavigated space. So, I honor that people do the work when they're ready and supported to do the work. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's very similar to, like somebody who has an addiction. You can't force anybody that has an addiction to go get help, right? They have to make a choice for themselves to say, I need help, and to go take action. Something I've dealt with personally with my brother-in-law, my wife's brother, who had a long time heroin addiction, and it took him going to all the way to the bottom, living on the streets, for him to finally understand that, like, I need help, and to make that decision to go do something. And no matter, what we try to do as a family, like, hey, we'll take you to these places, we'll make sure that you get there, and all of that is great and wonderful as a support system for him. But none of it would have worked until he made the decision, right, to say, I'm going to do this. And I think that's that same thing when you take time for inward reflection is, making sure that you tell yourself, this is what I'm going to do, map out a plan, right, and then actually execute that plan in a manner that, doesn't allow you to fall deep within yourself, because I think that's where depression starts.
Absolutely. And depression is definitely a suppression of a lot of things. And that's definitely, we all cope in different ways, being distracted. I look at addiction as a medicator to some sense. And you're right, you can't, although I have forced people to treatment, there's a Marchman Act thing you can do, and families can do interventions. You can't force someone to surrender and want to change, essentially. So that has to come from within. You have to at least be so uncomfortable with your reality that you come to a realization that you have to make major shifts. And if that doesn't come from within, it's very hard to get there, but you can still get there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like the same place of, like personal development or personal growth. If you constantly put yourself in scenarios where you're always comfortable, right? How do you grow as a person? Because I've always told, myself that everything that you want is on the other side of hard, right? You have, all of these things in your life. And if you continue to just stay complacent and comfortable, you're not really growing as a person, right? You have to step outside of that comfort zone and, feel that pressure. And that, I think that stepping outside of that comfort zone is that moment when, those people who are dealing with addiction finally make that decision to do something.
Absolutely. And that's like a powerful shift that can happen for a lot of people. And it can really be scary when depending on the person's trauma or their capacity to deal with certain emotions, taking that step can be very scary because obviously we're set up to fear whatever might come up. But as soon as you can take that brave step and you can kind of get support and move into that space, it's the most freeing, liberating thing that you can go through. But it is scary for not rational reasons, but like our primal brain is very scared of those things.
Well, and I think for addiction specifically too, though, a lot of people develop an addiction because they're self-medicating for some other underlying problem, that they have, whether it be, anxiety or depression or, whatever the case may be. And that was the case in my brother-in-law, right? He was dealing with really bad depression and anxiety, and he would be using the drugs as a coping mechanism for those things. And once he finally made a decision that he didn't want to do that anymore, he had to go to a regular doctor, actually talk to a therapist about what's going on inside of his head, get on some medication for depression and anxiety, so that way he didn't turn to heroin to self-medicate. And proud of him because now he's 2 years sober and has a job and is working and doing all the things that a member of society should be doing. And it's great to see those changes in people. I bet that's probably one of the most exciting things about your job, is seeing somebody come in when they start with you and being in one particular emotional or physical headspace, and then seeing that transition for them to kind of open up and they start to blossom like a flower, right? I mean, that's got to feel amazing when you're able to help somebody really internalize what they're dealing with and coach them to be able to get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, that is what drives me. And, sometimes that comes in small little ways where you're planting seeds for people and that you're holding space through whatever transition that they go through, or sometimes it comes in big waves. Like the last client I was just FaceTiming with got sober through this period, and I said this is her big awakening. Like, she's going to look back at this time and realize that all her stuff came to the surface, and she came right through it. So I get to be part of all of that, and it's awesome. I'm so privileged.
So let's shift gears a little bit. Earlier when I was talking, I made a couple of comments about relationships and the strain that some relationships are on now because of the COVID and all that kind of stuff, and people are at home. And one of the topics that you had talked about was maybe too much empathy, right, is bad for a relationship. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think especially right now when you have moms and dads and families at home, you don't want to upset anybody. I know that for me, I'm a former military guy, and I'm always like, this time everything's regimented pretty much, and my wife and I got into it wasn't a major argument, but we had a disagreement, and I'm like our child needs to go to bed the same time every day, right? And my wife said, no, there's some days where I'm at home and she's at home, she's not going to camp or whatever, why not let her stay up for 30 more minutes? And so we had this whole argument and I'm like, yeah, but I feel like if we do that, we're teaching her that it's okay to bend the rules, right? If it's not the same all the time, and then, oh no, well, it's okay today, but what about tomorrow? And if it's not keeping it consistent, and I finally just conceded the argument because I didn't want to take it any further, right? And so I showed like a bunch of empathy. I was just like, okay, I get it, I'm just gonna chill, and I guess I chose to not fight that battle. But as a minor of a battle that was, other people are dealing with much larger issues in their relationships, where somebody may be depressed or have anxiety, and their significant other is empathic and feeling bad for them and wanting to help them, and that also can lead to an unhealthy relationship if you have one part of the relationship that's going through depression, anxiety, or whatever the case may be. This other person is feeling empathy for that, and now you have both people that are depressed.
Yeah, that's a great point. And empathy is not a bad thing, but empathy without boundaries and over empathizing where we self-sacrifice is where we get into trouble in most relationships. And, a lot of people are going through a range of struggles in their relationship. And the example that you gave with you and your wife is a good example of how it wasn't about your daughter's bedtime. It was about different ideologies meeting. And for you, rules are very important. And if we really dug, we'd start to learn why that is and how you keep your world safe. And it works for you by following this structure. And where your wife might come from a different ideology, and I'm not going to go into it, but that core of where you guys might, you're fighting over something on the surface seems like about your daughter's bedtime, but there's the underlying issue under there, and it's not about picking a bedtime or not. It's about building empathy around how we both came to these different places in our life and what works for each other, and then coming through a compromise. So it could be taking the garbage out, or it could be domestic violence. There's lots of stuff coming up, and they all have very deep meaning. And I believe as we stay home together, all of our stuff is going to come up. And, yes, we should be spending more time, and this is a beautiful time to be with your family, but with financial stress, with safety of our own health, with, justice system and all these things going, it is a really hard time to not be anxious and not project that. And it's a really hard time to embrace the moment in all positive ways, because there's so much uncertainty and fear being thrown out there that a lot of families are struggling with that.
Jessica, in my 39 years on this planet, this absolutely is the worst experience in life that I've ever had to deal with, is this whole everything that's happening in 2020. Right? For lack of a better term, it's just a shit show, right? There's just when it rains, it pours, right? We can't have we can't just have a pandemic. We've got to have a pandemic. We've got to have an election. We've got to have protests. We've got to have, injustices. We've got to have let's just, take everything that's ever been wrong with American culture and just drop a bomb on it in 2020. I feel like that's what we're dealing with.
Totally. I told my fiance the other day, I'm preparing for a hurricane category 5 headed our way next month. But it also might be in some ways the best year of our life, but I don't know that we'll all get to that conclusion right now. I don't know that we can all feel that right now, but I do feel that so much shift and change is happening that the fallout from this could lead, and maybe this is me being optimistic, to really positive outcomes. So that's my optimistic side, as it's made everyone uncomfortable. And I think for every single, and in my practice this showed up, but for every single client or every single person that might be listening, it's different for every one of you, but what has shown up for you and what has been so uncomfortable for you during this period is where your work is. So it's been like a flashlight to, one of my clients, it was her drinking, for another one of my clients, it was her workaholism. Whatever it is, it's bringing up to the surface where we need to either let go of or do deeper work. And it's been a very transformational time for a lot of people too, because we're so uncomfortable. And and I know, unless we're uncomfortable, no change is going to occur.
Yeah, and referring back to, like my wife and I's argument yesterday, and I wouldn't even really call it an argument. It was a disagreement. Like we had, and literally, you're right. It wasn't necessarily about what time our daughter goes to bed. It was, I have a different philosophy of, how I think things should be operated versus my wife. I'm going to give you an example. I have these cards here, and it's called My Bank Code, right? And I'll give you an example, right? So with my bank code, and I learned this a long time ago, I am what's called a blueprint person, right? I'm about structure, stability, planning, right? But I'm also an action person as well. Freedom, flexibility, spontaneity, stimulating. I love competition, right? So those are like my inherent character traits as a human being. And my wife is polar complete opposite of me. She's total nurturer. She's total knowledge person, reads books all the time, can't constantly listening to books on tape if she doesn't have an actual book in front of her face, so she's, and that's what's actually really good about our relationship, is like we're a total yin and yang scenario. And that's why our relationship works in that space. But there are times where we become uncomfortable in having those conversations, and then then we press those conversations, as long as we're able to do that in a manner where it's healthy, right? No yelling or getting upset, like just being able to actually have a conversation. And there's just so much beauty and magic in a relationship that comes out when two polar opposite people can sit down and, at least it's okay to agree to disagree, and to make some concessions. And I think that's a lot of what relationships are. They're not, so many times people watch movies and, they see this whole, love at first sight and everybody gets married and happily ever after. And I'm like, I've been with the same woman for 23 years. Let me tell you, it's been a struggle the entire 23 years. And I'm not saying a struggle like it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but, relationships take work. They take effort. They take, emotional intelligence. They take, you have to be able to be, not afraid to expose yourself and speak from the heart. And I think so many times people get so caught up in their head when they're talking to their significant other. They're worried about how the other person's going to feel, right? And they're being too empathetic about how that other person's going to feel, that they just sit and fester their ideas and their stuff inside. And then, ultimately, if you put too much air in a balloon, it pops, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you brought up like 5 interesting topics, but one thing I'll say is that we usually do attract people who aren't like us. And ironically, the things that we're attracted to are sometimes the qualities that we lack within. And so they end up being the things that annoy us later once we're past like the dopamine phase or the honeymoon phase. So the very things that we were attracted to, like my fiance is spontaneous and he doesn't plan anything. And I'm more like you, very rigid, and I have my schedule and I'm like, oh my God, this is so liberating how he lives. And it clashes at some point. But the work is to know that you're attracted to parts of yourself that you actually need to develop more. So you actually need to become a little bit more like your wife. I might not want to hear this. And she might need to put in a little bit more structure, and that there's, an ability to grow, because whatever is bothering you or you really like about another person says more about where your work is than the other person.
Yeah.
So I love that. And yes, when we first meet someone, we're in this dopamine phase and everything is perfect, and we don't hit consciousness in a relationship until we start into some power struggles. And in order to get through those power struggles, we have to have humility. We have to have some empathy. We have to speak our mind. We have to have empathy. We have to be able to like zoom out and see the bigger picture, or else we'll just get stuck there. And I love that you kind of openly admit it. I think all relationships are a commitment to consciously work on the relationship and always like looking at where is my part in this.
Yeah, I mean it takes 2 to tango.
It does.
Yeah, and you're right, and I've learned that about myself. I have this whole structure thing, and I'm not as I guess free spirited as my wife is, and there's been some times where I've let go and just kind of ran with the flow. And been spontaneous, and I've also done that too, and been spontaneous. And my wife's like, I'm not ready to do that. Where did this come from? It was like too over the top, So what are some tips that you can give people that are in relationships that are dealing with the idea of being around your significant family, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, to allow them to foster the relationship and continue it to be positive and not be negative, and and keep the sparks alive, right?
Yeah, I think that's, I have a lot of things I can say. That number one thing I would say is that working from home makes you, and being home and being around your partner so much, you have to develop better boundaries in an environment like this, because if you either you're enmeshed all the time and you're not giving each other enough space to have like freedom and autonomy and breathe in new energy, or you're not like creating enough of a spark by giving each other the space that you need. So asking or creating structure when you're both home together could really benefit you guys. And when you're doing date night or special time together, like plan that out and like alleviate any expectations other than that time that's allocated, so that you can still get your downtime, because we're not going to the gym, and we're not even getting in our car and driving to work, which we don't realize is our own processing time. So we're not getting that space So I would say the number one thing is to give each other or create more space. And for someone who is very empathic, or sometimes they struggle setting the boundaries or asking for space, but really honoring like what you need and asking for space. And then the other piece of advice I would give, and kind of piggybacks off of your example, is if you get into an argument with your loved one, step back and ask yourself, what is this really about? Like, what is this really bringing up for me? Is it old? And is it really old? And, step back and then ask your partner if you could dial up. You're not going to ask if you could talk, and give your partner a chance to talk and just repeat what you're hearing. Like, repeat what you're hearing, try to understand what they're saying, maybe even validate what they're saying, and then pause and then give yourself a chance to talk and have them repeat what they're hearing. Because I think we get into these modes where we're just responding to each other.
Yep.
And we stop really listening to what's going on. And sometimes when you repeat what you're hearing, you're healing your partner by saying, I see you, I hear you, and they can see that mirrored back at them, and it helps them really process. And usually when you do talk in that way, people start to realize that this is not even about you. This is about what's coming up for me. And I know that's a little deep for radio, but if you practice this reflective listening, giving yourself space, asking yourself what part of this is coming up for me that might not even have to do with the trash. Maybe you're anxious about something else, kind of just start to ask yourself those questions.
Are you having trouble finding hand sanitizer? Well, Spa Treat has you covered. There's no need to go searching high and low. Just visit spatreatofficial.com and place your order on their easy-to-use website. On schedule delivery. One of the great things about this product, Spa Treat Fulfillment Team is working around the clock to provide people hand sanitizer during this time of need and get your order to you as quickly as possible, even faster than Amazon. Spa Treat also has the lowest price of any of its competitors. Spa Treat has 62% alcohol content, and the FDA recommends between 60 to 80 for maximum protection. This one has 62 because it doesn't dry your hands out. I use this stuff every single day. It is fantastic. It's got certified organic extracts with the ingredients in that hand sanitizer that are the highest quality, and they're designed to leave your hands smelling and feeling fresh while protecting you at the same time. The best part, there's no tricky residue left over. None of that sticky stuff. 4 scents available: unscented, tea tree, lavender, and lemon. And best of all, this product right here is made in the good old United States of America. A lot of companies are having trouble dealing with the current demands, so Spa Treat has dedicated themselves to providing a much needed product in the time of crisis. Spa Treat has better prices, faster shipping, and a larger supply than any of their competition. There isn't even a close second. Visit spatreatofficial.com and enter promo code SPA SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. That's right. Not only are they offering the lowest price available, but they're also offering our listeners a discount. This promo code is exclusive to Voice America, and only our listeners get this discount. Spa Treat and Voice America came together on this sponsorship in order to provide Americans something they could really need right now: peace of mind. Visit spatreatofficial.com and order yours today. That's spatreatofficial.com, and make sure you use the promo code SPA at checkout to receive 5% off your entire order. spatreatofficial.com. Get your awesome hand sanitizer. My wife and I are extremely fortunate in that during this whole thing, because I work in media, I've been commuting back and forth to the studio every day. And so I was working from home just on Mondays. Just, my wife's like, can you please just come home for one day? That way you could manage the kid on that one day while she's, she was finishing online school and all that stuff at that time, and so then, that was my time to help out. And then Tuesday through Friday, I drove to work every day. And you're right, that time in the vehicle, like as you're driving to work, it is a good time. It is a time I reflect too. It's also a time where I get to listen to some music, because I have a 6-year-old, and there's a couple of songs that I really like that I won't play in front of her because they might have 1 or 2 cuss words or something like that in them. And so I get some time to listen to some music, without being like, oh, did my kid hear that? That kind of stuff. And so we've been fortunate for that. And you're right. That's what I had to do during our argument the other day, is take a step back and go, well, wait a minute, what is this really about, this 30 minutes? Because I thought about it, and I'm like, what is 30 minutes? 30 minutes is nothing. This is, there's no need for a power struggle here, and
yeah,
I just was like, I'm
done. You
done.
also brought up like another really important point. Like, all these people are home with their kids, And one of the things I see constantly in couples counseling is that people are fighting for time. So either we feel constantly overwhelmed or we don't get to take care of ourselves, and then we build resentment. And I think with children home all the time, we might be fighting over not getting enough time. So instead of spending time with your partner, giving them the space by taking over the parenting role and giving them that space to be alone and decompress, that's like gold right now.
It's total
and
gold.
So honoring that whoever is home is probably doing a lot more than they typically even do, and they get no time. We're all being stretched.
I want to take just a couple of moments out of the show to thank Harry's for sponsoring this radio program. And man, Harry's is such a great product, a great shaving product for men. As you guys know, I'm bald. I have no hair. I rock a goatee. I'm telling you, these are the best razors on the market. They have the greatest gel. Their stuff is just awesome. I know times are tough right now, but Harry's is still here to help you look your best while saving you a little cash along the way. Even if your business on top and PJs on the bottom, Harry has your grooming needs covered with high quality blades as low as $2 each, delivered straight to your doorstep. Again, I'm a bald guy. You can trust what a bald guy says about razors. It keeps my face nice and clean so I can keep nice lines on my goatee. It also helps me keep my head nicely shaved as well, so I can stay looking my best. You can get a trial delivered to your doorstep by going to harrys.com/frequency. Harry's is a return to the essential. Quality, durable blades at a fair price, just $2 a blade. They've cut out the middleman manufacturing blades in their own German factory that's been honing precision blades for a century. That means you get incredibly high quality blades at factory direct prices. Trust me, I've been using this product now for a couple of months. It is amazing. Super convenient. The blade refills are delivered directly to your door on your schedule with or without a subscription. If you don't want to subscribe, just go buy new blades and have them sent on over. In this very challenging time, feel a little bit better about your purchase. 1% of the proceeds are set aside to nonprofit organizations devoting to helping provide access to better health care for men and veterans. You know, Finding Your Frequency, we support the veterans, so you can help support the veterans by using the Harry's product. Also, to help support those who need it most right now, Harry's is donating $1 million worth of shaving supplies to hospitals across the United States. Who can't get behind that? I know I can. Listeners of the show can redeem their Harry's trial set at harrys.com/frequency. Again, that's harrys.com/frequency. You'll get a weighted ergonomic handle for a firm grip. Those things are wonderful. It's great. A 5-blade razor with a lubricating strip and a trimmer blade. The rich lathering shave gel. This stuff is amazing. It's got aloe in it. It'll keep your skin nice and hydrated. I use it on my head and my face. It is amazing. You also get a travel blade cover to keep your razors dry and easy to grab on the go. Go to harrys.com/frequency and start shaving better today. That's harrys.com/frequency. This is funny. I was on Facebook and I'm scrolling through my news feed and I can't remember the guy, but it was a really funny video. And I think he's in Florida as well. And he's talking about Mima and Papa, right? Grandma and Grandpa. And he's like, the hardest thing is my kids haven't got to see Mima and Papa for 3 months or whatever. And he says when this whole thing is over, he's like, I don't care how long Mima and Papa come and take the kids. They want them for a week, take them for a week. You want them for a month, that's fine. You want to give them a 2-liter of Coca-Cola because you haven't seen them, I don't care. Like it was the coolest thing. And so when they lifted the stay-at-home order for us here in Phoenix, I was like Marley, let's go see your grandma. And so we were, for the first time in a couple of months, we were able to go over there. And because before all of this was happening, we had a pretty sweet deal. My mother would take Marley for Saturday night. And we had swim classes that were scheduled on Sunday morning. So that was something that my daughter and her grandmother got to do together, which was really cool. And that also gave my wife and I like one day a week where we could go and have a Saturday night date night. Obviously, we haven't been doing that because I'm still not eating out yet. But we did recently, the last 2 weeks, have allowed Marley to go with grandma and go do that and have, some home time. And I was like, ooh, Uber Eats. We can Uber Eats some food over to the house and watch a movie and get that date night in. And it's been a great reprieve. And I totally understand when I was watching that video how, like my daughter absolutely adores my mom, and having that grandmother time I think is important, especially with a little girl, right? Being able to like be there with grandma, and there's things that grandma can expose to her as a female that I can never do, right? That I can't. I'm not that person. I can't provide that. I'm a dude. There's things I don't know about women, and so it's just great to be able to see them foster a relationship. And now that we're kind of getting back into the swing of things are a little bit less tense and less stressful at our house specifically. But you bring up some great points when you talk about being able to pause and, notice where you are and, what you're doing when you're having those conversations. And, we really appreciate you giving some insight on that. Do you have any books or anything that you got coming out?
So I just signed a really big book deal, but it's not coming out for some time. I signed a book deal with Penguin. It comes out, fall of 2021 or January 2022. So I'm in the re-editing phase in the creative process, which I need space for phase. So I'm really excited about that. I'm putting a lot of energy into that, and it feels good. It's definitely in my frequency. Mm-hmm. So, to come.
So that's something where you have to kind of take a step back and find time for that in your creative process.
I love that you're hitting all my points today. I must be hitting all your points too. Yes, I just had to I'm taking 3 days off next weekend, and I just had this come to Jesus with myself. Like, I've overworked a little bit too much in COVID. I need to peel the layers back. I need to create more space. Like everything you've talked about in this hour, I'm like, boom, boom, this is why this is happening. Yeah. And I need to, I need to prioritize my energy a lot more than I thought I did, so I can put what I can into certain things, which means I have to say no more. And I am, and that is continuous work.
Yeah, I'm actually looking forward. We're going to be traveling to Idaho the 1st of July when the rest of the travel restrictions here on the West Coast are lifted. And my wife is like, she's kind of scared, like, but we have to stop at these gas stations. We're driving, right? We're driving to Idaho. It's like a 1,200 mile drive. She's like, we got to stop at all these places, and how are we going to keep ourselves safe? And I'm like, oh, honey, don't worry about it. I got it planned out. Or of course I have it planned out. I'm like, we got the Clorox wipes, and I got some spray, and we got all this stuff. We'll have it in the truck, and everything will be good. You won't have to touch anything. And when she was staying at home, I would go to the grocery store. Like, she didn't even leave the house. I would hit the grocery store on my way home, so she didn't have to do that. And I'm just like, we got it all planned out. But it's an exciting time, because just like you, being able to take 6 or 7 days and not be stuck in the COVID moment, because just like you, I have been so overworking. I'm at the office for 12 hours in the studio. I'm doing, these interviews like this. Before this week, I was doing 6 1-hour interviews a week. Right. And so I had to start doing the same thing. I had to start telling people, hey, you know what? Nope, my calendar's getting full. Let's book out further rather than trying to cram it in now. And, it's been helpful too, because while I've been doing that and kind of saying no more, it's leading up to this time that I'm going to be taking off. And so that way, when I come back from being off, I'm not put back into the same situation where I'm trying to cram too much into my day. Yeah, I totally feel you. I totally feel you.
And I'm so glad you're taking the time off before you go away, because my experience, if you don't slow down a little, then you go away and you're exhausted, and you're spending some time just trying to decompress there. So that's beautiful that you're doing that. Yeah, I think there's lessons definitely. I think in media and psychotherapy, I think there was a call to show up more, and I think we did. And I think to some extent, some of us are, decompressing a little or slowing down now and kind of catching our breath.
Yeah, I'm so getting tired of the new normal. Right, in media. Like, I walk through, we have 5 stations that are broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we have our health and wellness channel. When I walk into the control room where the health and wellness channel is, for the last 3 months, it's all the new normal, the COVID, the nurses, the front line, the this. And it's absolutely, can't hear it anymore. This is why I'm looking so forward to like going completely off grid. I'm going up to in the mountains. I'm not even gonna have cell service, and just really, I'm trying to remember to get my circadian rhythm back, right? Like just go, for lack of a better term, no joke, go hug a tree, just, get in with nature, and get out of the house, and, also get out of the heat. It was 109 here yesterday in Phoenix. So
yeah, that is hot. I mean, it's pretty hot here. Not that hot, but humid.
You guys got that humid, though. I've been to Florida many times. We've done a lot of events at the Orange County Event Center over in Orlando. And every time we go, they always send us there in like July and August. And it's just like, thick.
Yeah, you got to come here in February. Request that next time.
That's what I tell people about Arizona too. I'm like, just come here in like February, March, or October, November. All that is just fantastic. I'm sure you guys have the same thing too. I love Florida because I love baseball, and so as much time as I can get over there, because we do spring training here in Phoenix, and I love to go see the other teams in the Florida leagues as well. And I'm really hoping that next year we get to some actual baseball, because I don't even know what they're doing right now. They still can't get the players to decide on like taking a little bit of less money because the season will be shorter to get baseball actually playing. I think by the time they actually start playing baseball games, it's going to be football season.
Yeah. Everything, like you said, your rhythm got thrown off. I think everybody's rhythm got thrown off, and we have to kind of find that new balance. Yeah. The new balance. The new balance.
I like that word better than the new normal.
Yeah. No, I went back to my office last week, and I was doing a session with a mask on, and I was like, it kind of hit me, and I was like, it's just so weird, it's still surreal at times. And, we're still kind of processing. I'm still processing it, especially when I leave the house and interact in the world.
Yeah, and I got into a car accident in the middle of all this too, right?
Oh, wow.
There's no cars on the road, and I find the only car that's on the road at 8 o'clock in the morning on my way to the studio, and the guy decides to make a left-hand turn in front of me and hit me. I'm like, there's, the whole 3 cars that were out that day. Normally in Phoenix is the 4th largest, metropolitan area in the country. And, when we have traffic, it's bad. And then we had the stay-at-home orders, and I'm going to work at what used to take me 45 minutes was taking me 20 minutes, right? And that was great. And I'm cruising along, and then but bam. And so it was another thing too, like I'm coping with all of that, and it's the COVID, and, like I said earlier, it's been a it rains, it pours situation for a lot of people, because if you throw in, like my car accident, other people are probably dealing with other stuff too. Like, you throw in a family member possibly passing away because of COVID-19, and then not being able to go to their funeral because you social distancing, and they might be in a state that's not allowing travel, or you have to have a 14-day quarantine to go to that location before you can leave. And, it's been stressful for probably a lot of people.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my grandmother's in a nursing home. She's in the hospital right now. I haven't been able to even go, and she's got kind of dementia. I haven't been able to go visit her, and she doesn't have COVID, and hopefully she doesn't get it. But it's like so many things that we took for granted. Mm-hmm. That, like you said, your little girl seeing her grandmother, me being able to go visit my grandmother. Like, I think we're going to come out of this, and our safety and security got shook, and now we're going to have like maybe a new gratitude and a new foundation for how lucky we are to have these little moments and these things.
That was very well said, because being able to realize those things that were taken for granted and internalizing that, and then saying to yourself, I'm not going to let that happen anymore. I'm not going to be stretched out so much anymore. I'm going to be more focused with my family, my relationships, my my interactions with my children. I have another son who lives in Missouri who's going to be 22 years old, and through all of this too, it's like him and I have been talking more than we did when he moved out, and we're doing more family related things at home because we're not going out anywhere. And I think you're right. It's about being able to take a step back and remember that, you're creating memories, especially if you have children. Like I don't want my child to look back on 2020 and be like, oh my God, I have the COVID, the virus, and I'll get out of sorts about it. I want her to look back on it and be like, when that COVID thing happened, that's when our family came together. That's when we became stronger. That's when we, that was when my dad started teaching me about, very important things like personal space. Like my daughter had no sense of personal space before all of this. We were being in line and she bumping into people, and now she understands personal space because I'm just like, whoa, come back here. So there's definitely a lot of good that's coming out of this.
Yeah, for sure. I have to try to look at it that way.
So Jessica, I know you have the book stuff that you're doing, but what else is on the horizon for you over the next 3 to 5 years? Where do you see yourself going from what you're doing now?
Wow. It's so interesting. This is like the first interview where I feel like you're hitting on all my things that are coming up for me right now. Like this week, I started to think, well, what do I want to do next? Not that I need to set a new goal, but I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind joining a podcast or being more out there and talking to more people and connecting more to people. I don't want to create my own podcast because I tend to overextend myself and put my energy into too many places. And I don't want to join this podcast today, but I'm inviting it for the future because I feel like there might be a part of me that wants to connect with people more in a public space.
Hey, when you're ready to do that, just email me. When you're ready to do that, you just email me. That's what we do best at Voice America is we allow thought leaders, authors, and people just like you to focus on the content and none of the other podcasting or radio minutia, right? And that's one of the things that we do absolutely the best. In my opinion, obviously I'm skewed. I've been here 16 years, so of course my opinion is going to be a little bit skewed towards our product, but that's why I've been here for 16 years. I used to work in regular, land-based AM and FM radio where, everything was advertising driven and, you couldn't talk about this or you couldn't do that because Zoloft was a sponsor and, God forbid you talk bad about antidepressants or, something like that on a talk show when they have those sponsors on and, being able to, have a place where I can speak my mind. I can have conversations like this with, people like you that are thought leaders in the space and really kind of just help people to understand and open their eyes to, how other people are living their lives and how they're finding their frequency is, been exhilarating for me, which is why I love doing the radio show because I get to highlight people like you. I get to learn things also internally when I have these conversations that, for me, it's like it's almost an invaluable component to what I do because here we are. We just had a conversation about a few things. You touched on a couple of items and I was like, oh wait, yeah, you're right. I need to do that better. And each of these shows is gives you that opportunity. There's networking and it's just been great. So whenever you're ready to do a show, you let me know. We'll get you lined up.
I appreciate that so much. I'm putting it out in the universe that I want synergy with someone who brings something slightly different than me to the table, but is in the same space. And when I find that person, I'm going to come to you.
Awesome. That is awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining the show today, Jessica. We really, really appreciate it. Where can people find out more information about you? Drop your website, your social medias, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, so I have an Instagram site. It's Jessica Baum, LMHC. And literally, if you type that into the internet, I have two websites. They both come up. I have the Relationship Institute of Palm Beach. So that's www.relationshipspb.com. And then I have a website called beselfful.com, which I didn't even get to really share with you today, but that's also another website. And that one is just for women and women who struggle with codependency and kind of working on healing themselves and showing up as their whole self. So lots of ways you can put my name in, and fortunately I pop up everywhere, and any way you want to find me, everybody, awesome. I welcome all of that feedback or anything. I appreciate that.
I really like the idea of what you were talking about with self-full, and codependency. That's something, I tell my daughter this probably every day. And she says, why do you do this, Dad? I was like, because you don't need to depend on a man for anything. Nothing, ever.
I love that you say that, and that could bounce into a whole dialogue that, to a degree, you want to be internally dependent and meet your own needs and find inner security. And then as I've gotten older in my life, there is a healthy degree of depending on someone else, and knowing what is dependency versus healthy dependence. And that's a very big topic. And so first you want to have that internal ability to be your own anchor and be self-full and take care of yourself. And then you want to learn to have the people that you can depend on, because you do need people, but you don't want to be in a situation where you're codependent, like in an unhealthy way. So it's so 100%. Gray, and I feel like we could talk another hour on that.
So I'm going to end with this. This is something my mom used to tell me all the time, like about relationships. Like she was like, if by you being yourself and you going on your own path, you happen to run across somebody else who's being themselves on their path, and you guys can go do that together, that's where good relationships are born. And I've always just kind of thought that in my mind because each person is independent of themselves, but because they're independent of themselves, they can focus on a relationship without being, dependent for finances or, any of those other things, and make an actual emotional connection for a relationship. That's not a codependent status where you're like, oh, I need a man because I need someone to pay my bills, or, whatever that is, or I need a sugar mama to help me pay my bills, because those relationships are definitely going to fail.
Yeah, no, I mean, and essentially that's part of the core of my book, is building inner security, and so that you can attract a healthier relationship. I always say you have to have a home developed within yourself, and two homes can meet and form this new reality. But if you don't have that developed, it's going to become unbalanced, aka unhealthy codependency. So I love that you said that. It was beautiful.
Jessica Baum, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you being on the show. If you guys are listening on your favorite, I'm going to call them a podcatcher, because there's so many different places that people can consume podcasts, but you can check this out on voiceamerica.com, Apple, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, and anywhere podcasts are found, even on iHeartRadio. If you have a smart speaker, you can just say, Alexa, play Finding Your Frequency. Boom, and there we are. And make sure when you're listening, you rate us 5 stars, because 5 stars are way better than 4. Jessica and I deserve 5 stars. I think we do. Yeah, 5
yes,
stars.
Thank you.
Thank you guys again for tuning in. My name is Ryan Treasure for Finding Your Frequency right here on the Voice America Talk Radio Network. Stay tuned for another great episode coming at you next time.